people now have a shorter attention span than goldfish. And when people are searching for a wedding videographer or a wedding singer, they'll probably have multiple tabs open. And if you spend the first 100 words talking about something that everyone else has spoken about, that little X is very tempting.
Hey, be sure you stick around because we're only getting warmed up.
Who you are, what you do, and why should they care?
Yes, well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time you're listening to this. Here we are with another episode of Think Wedding Business. Now, today we've got a very special guest on, and topic today I think is going to be really beneficial to people is about copyright, and specifically really for your websites. Because gone are the days where you just rip somebody's website off, put it into an AI and reword it and put it on. There's so much more involved, and today, telling us all about it is Mr. Jonathan Carpenter. Woohoo!
Woohoo! Woo!
We'll gloss over this now quickly, but husband of Rebecca Carpenter, who's a previous guest of the podcast, friend of ours, photographer extraordinaire as well. So shout out to Rebecca. But that's out the way and done now.
She's had a moment.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention it. So I came across you, John, through some other videographer friends of mine. I listened to a podcast that you did with them, which was excellent, by the way.
Thank you.
I was listening to it, going, "Oh my god, this is great stuff!" And I was making notes, and so I was like, "We've got to get him on because there's so much more, as you just said, to copywriting, not copyright as in copyright laws, copywriting.
Yeah, with a W, not an R.
There's so much more to it than I realized. And anyway, we'll get into the questions, but I want to start with kind of a bit about your background and how is it just wedding industry stuff that you do, or do you work for other businesses?
Yeah, it's mainly weddings. I mean, it's I got in because I was writing Rebecca's blogs and websites and stuff. When I started, I was already niched effectively because that's the only thing I had any experience in. So all of her, it's quite everyone talks to each other. It's quite cliquey, I guess, in the wedding photography world. Everyone talks to each other. So as soon as everyone realized that she hadn't been writing her website or her blogs all this time, then I sort of fell into loads of clients. So I sort of naturally just started doing it in the wedding industry. But I have written a few like business websites and things like that. But yeah, it
makes sense. This makes sense now because I've just read a part on Rebecca's website and it says that she's married to a handsome husband.
Yeah, I wrote that. Yeah. The funny thing is, I didn't actually realize I'd written that. And someone, when we launched her website, someone on Instagram said, isn't it funny that he called himself handsome? I was like, oh my god, this is yeah.
Nothing wrong with a bit of self-confidence.
Nobody else.
I remember seeing her post actually a few years ago now, wasn't it? And she was like, "Here's my secret weapon. Here's my husband." And yeah, I was like, "He's okay." So you must have got inundated with wedding suppliers going, "I need help."
Yeah. It's funny though because her first website. When I remember writing it, thinking, "Oh my god, I'm so good! I'm so talented! This is insane!" And then when we redid her website, and I was reading through, I was like, "Oh my god, what was I thinking writing this?" And and it's funny how much I've learned over the space of probably about 5-6 years since I wrote the original website. And you suddenly, I guess, you grow, don't you? You realize you get better at things.
100%, yeah. I mean, I it's the same. Not that I have your skills, but like when I made my website at the time, this is great, this is amazing, this is exactly what I wanted to sell myself as, and I'm really proud to show couples this. And then you look back now, like even now, people go on. I think of people going on my site, and I think about them navigating to, and I'm like, I'm not sure I'm really happy with people. You go through iterations where after a few years, I'm like, no, my website needs an update, and I'm almost kind of feeling bad that I'm sending people to it because I'm like, this isn't.
Yeah. I think that's the first sign you need to redo your website is when you preempt it with an apology, when you're like, sorry about the website, but if you want to get in touch, just don't read the words or look at the videos or.
None of it. Yeah, skip straight to the inquiry bit. Yeah.
But
I think that's true for a lot of us because it's kind of something that you neglect. I remember hearing someone saying you should. We spoke. No, it was a website person we spoke to. Who said you should be working on your website, like updating it like once a week, once a fortnight. I was like,
Mm.
God, I've not touched mine for about 3 years.
Yeah, I think I did mine. I've had it done recently, not much done to it, but when I did one in the Wedding Awards, and it must have been 2014, and I'd literally not touched it for like 9 years because you get busy, don't you? And you get busy, and then the bookings are coming in, and then all of a sudden things are
Well,
changing.
you just yeah, you just think that it's there and it's
You
not
think it never
important
needs
in a
touching,
sense.
but yeah,
But
it, it,
then
it
you do
does.
get to that point where you're like, oh, sorry about the website, but it might
Yeah.
give you a bit of an idea.
And I think people always think as well with websites, it's got to be so visual with images and video, but the copy is super super important. So maybe we can drill into that really. So, from your knowledge, what would you say is good practice for people when they're building their website and they have to think about copy? Good starting places. Is it a real eye-catching article on the homepage, or just gives a bit of insight?
I'd say for the homepage, I'd say the most important thing is to get to the point straight away. I cited a thing on the elsewhere, but Microsoft Canada did a study recently that said people now have a shorter attention span than goldfish. Humans are, we can't concentrate. I think 10, 20 seconds is all we've got. And when people are searching for a wedding videographer or a wedding singer, they'll probably have multiple tabs open. And if you spend the first 100 words talking about something that everyone else has spoken about, that little X is very tempting. And I think you need to really get to the point of what you offer, why they should care, why you do what you do, and how that's going to affect their experience, and really get to that really very quickly. And I also think with the homepage, you also need to start telling your story as well, because people like stories, people remember stories, and people remember visuals. And again, it's one of the most important things to do is to get people to remember you, so that if they don't book straight away, when they're talking about it in bed later that night, you're one of the people they remember, rather than the 40, 50 people who've all said exactly the same thing. They all, because I saw an interesting thing. A guy said he came out with 5 or 6 words, and it was like elegance and luxury and a happy leprechaun and timeless and a cow wearing a hat. And in an hour, you'll remember the happy leprechaun and the cow wearing the hat, but you won't remember the other three. And I think it's really, really important to paint these visuals in people's minds, so that when they're thinking back, they've got something to sort of lock onto.
Yeah,
mentally.
that analogy is great because it's certainly in videography world, I'm guilty of it. We all have the same buzzwords: cinematic, timeless, luxury, elegant.
In fact, in my question, one of the things is describe your work, but you're not allowed to say timeless, cinematic, elegant. You're not allowed to. I sort of give them a list of words they're not allowed to say, so they actually have to think about it without just going for the same buzzwords as everyone else.
Yeah, you're right. If you inquire with 10 videographers, 10 wedding entertainers, and they're all saying those same words, then it does all bleed into one. And then, like you say, you just get lost in the
So this
masses,
is
don't you?
John. This is going like a lot deeper than what people would think when it comes to writing copy on the websites. It's so much more than just like you say, writing. I suppose you've always got to try and sell the sizzle, not the steak. But there's more going on, isn't there? You've got to tell your story. You've got to have some sort of quirk or something that's going to stand you out from the thousands of other wedding suppliers out there, because it is all very similar, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and it's I haven't heard "sell the sizzle, not the steak" for years. That's such a good phrase. Yeah, no, it is
The
very
old
interesting.
school.
Yeah, it's old school, but yeah, it's old school for a reason. But yeah, I think it's you. But you also need to get people to picture what it's like having you there on the day. You need to get them to imagine having you. I did a post recently, but there's a study they did with people. Once you have something, you place a higher intrinsic value on it. So you'll pay £50 for something, but once you have it, you wouldn't take £50 to give it back because you value it more because it's now yours. And that works if people imagine having something as well. So if I imagine having you as my wedding videographer, if I've got it in my mind, and in my mind you're now my videographer, I don't want to give you up, and I won't care so much about the price because in my mind you're already mine. And that's a really important thing with copy as well. If because someone said, I think Roy Williams, his name is, he said, no one wants to walk into a dark room. No one's going to inquire if they can't imagine what they're inquiring for. So you have to sort of get them to imagine what it's like having you. And then when they find out the price, they really want you. They don't want to give you up, and they know exactly what they're inquiring for. So you do have to sort of explain what you're doing and get them to imagine it. But you also have to sell the sizzle and not the steak, as you say.
It's so good because it's again in video, a lot of it's about the product, especially with what I do, and I guess photography as well. You just think I've got to sell my images, my film, and it's so great to hear you say this because we always preach this, don't we? It's all about
Personal brand, isn't it? Really,
their relationship with you, and
Yeah.
the experience on the day.
It's like Rebecca Carpenter. She kind of sells her personality.
Have you heard of her? She's great.
Yeah, she's mega, and it comes across so effectively. Right, whenever you look through any of her socials on a website, and
Well, we know why now, don't
we know why now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a fraud. It's all me.
What do you think? So, like, if for someone, because I'm guessing the homepage is the most important thing to, if you're going to have prioritize anything on your site, that's the one.
Yeah, I'd say that's the one. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to prioritize anything, but I always like to think of a website as like as a river. So you sort of jump in at the homepage, and then you're guided through this sales experience. So you jump in at the homepage, you get your attention. You get their attention straight away. You maybe tell a story to get them to remember you and get them to invest in you emotionally. Then you get taken to the experience page or like the weddings packages page or whatever, and then you sort of describe the experience. You get them to imagine having you, and then they gradually fall in love with you. And then by the time you've got to the bottom and you've got to the prices, they don't really care what you cost because you've been through this experience. And I think a very common mistake I see on people's websites is they don't really have this flow. You sort of go in and you're not really invested straight away, and you can go anywhere, and there's not a lot of buttons that say, now come and find out how I work. And you're sort of just drifting around this site, and you don't have to
It's all there
inquire.
from the get-go. Just
Yeah.
pick what you want, sort of.
Suppose having the right flow from start to finish when somebody comes on your website to
makes
get to the
sense, yeah.
pricing bit, it's directing them in the correct
Because the
way.
last thing I always worry about with prices is you don't want them to just go, there's a pricing tab, click that, oh, it's this much, and then not look at anything else because they're like, yeah, okay, it's this much, and then they dismiss.
Yeah, that's why I don't have prices on my website specifically for that, really. I want people to get to know me a little bit first and go down a bit of a journey before they come to finding out what prices. And by then, like you say, the deal is already done.
So, go on.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's a lot of it sort of upfront work to be done before probably somebody is going to get on your website. How you communicate on your social media. Are you sort of becoming friends with other suppliers and creating a network? And there's lots of other ways, to get the work. But essentially, people will be going on your website at some point, and when they get to that point, they've got to be led down the correct path, haven't they?
Yeah, because as you said, Adam, I think if you give them the option to go to the price, I think it was Google did a study, but most people, they obviously start on the homepage. Well, not obviously, but they usually start on the homepage. And then I think they would often go to the about. And if there is a pricing page, they would usually go from home straight to pricing, and then they judge you purely on price. So if they have an idea in their mind of how much they're willing to pay, if you're above that, then that's all they're judging you on.
You lost it. It's a very logical step. You
yeah.
don't want that. You want the emotion. You want them to buy into you, like as you're saying.
So what about wording then for certain tabs on your website? Because we've seen it in the past where instead of people putting pricing, they put investment.
Okay.
And things like that. Are there any sort of keywords that sort of resonate with people more than just your generic home, about, investment, portfolio? are there any different sort of words people can use that?
Some people are gonna be listening, feeling attacked because it's what
Mine's the
everyone does.
same.
Yeah.
Mine's the same. I just wondered if there's any more words that really resonate with people more than just like sort of generic wording.
I guess first of all, I think the most important thing for navigation is well, I mean, it's called a navigation, so it has to be clear. So you can't. I think someone I wrote for had their couples shot as something like love stories or something like that, but you don't really know what that is. And so for a navigation, it's useless because the idea of the navigation is so you can navigate around. So I would say the first thing to make sure is that your navigation is actually clear and you know where what people can click on it, know where
So
they're
that
going.
word needs to be what it says on the tin, sort of.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think investment is a fancy way of saying pricing, but I also think people are quite savvy to it. So that it's synonymous with pricing. You might as well just say pricing. I think if having experienced, especially if you're linking your experience and your packages on the same page, calling it experience is a much more customer centric way of saying it, because it's more about what their experience with you is going to be like rather than how much money you're going to get off them.
Got it.
And I would recommend putting your prices on your website. But
You would?
I would, yeah. Purely because
a massive debate in the wedding industry about
it is.
price
Yeah.
on
Tell us
website.
why, because I'm back and forth with
Give me your reasons why.
Well, first of all, because I think it's disingenuous, and I think it's really fucking annoying if you go onto someone's website and you can't find the price. And for me, even if they are the perfect person for me, if I can't find the price, I will not inquire, just out of principle. And I think a lot of people are the same, because people are very, very impatient, and they would much rather just, again, no one wants to walk into a dark room. You don't want to inquire with someone and then have to have that awkward conversation. But also, I think if you there's a thing called price anchoring, where you don't judge something's price on how much, on the value. It's a sort of cognitive bias, because we have to make all these decisions really quickly all the time. So our brain finds shortcuts. So we judge the price on something against other things. So if you go in expecting you to be £200 a day, and then you come in with a price of 1,000 or whatever you cost, in their mind, because their price anchor is 200, you are way too expensive. And it doesn't matter how perfect for them you are always going to be too expensive, because their anchor is so much lower. Whereas if you give them that anchor first, then that's their anchor. And they will then judge you on what you can offer rather than the comparison to what they expected you to cost.
Yeah.
See,
It's all about that flow then, isn't it? And doing things in the right order.
For me, I think I miss an opportunity to kind of create a personal connection to a couple by having my price on the website, because at least then if they come and inquire, I've got an opportunity then to call them, build up some rapport, and then we can talk about price. And after that, and I think sometimes I don't know, I think I may miss a few because it's very hard for me in what I do. It's hard to kind of convey that on a website without me using my words, and this is why I always have meetings with couples before I take any bookings. If somebody's not seen me and they go on my website and it's 2,000 quid, they're like, it's just a wedding thing. It's too expensive. And I suppose going back to your point, yeah, you need to try and really convey what you do within your website before they get to that point. But I don't know. I think because there's many people, many couples who at first have said we thought it was too expensive. Now, when we've met you and we've talked to you, we've realised the value. We're going to book you. So I think if you've got your pricing too high at the start without a chance to talk to couples, in my mind, you might miss a few bookings.
But then, how many people saw your price, thought you were too expensive, and then didn't inquire at all?
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's tricky, isn't it?
But if they haven't seen the price and then they contact me and we can talk and we can start some dialogue, then I can convey my value. They will go, yes, I get it now. That's why, yeah, it's worth it now. Do you understand what I mean? It's like it's like one of the podcasts with Julie and Richard. He'd never heard of me. He'd been on my website, but he'd never heard of me. Julie had seen me and known me for years, knows my value, told him what I'm charging, and he was like, "Oh my God, that's ridiculous." We did the wedding. After the wedding, he's like, "You should be charging more."
Yeah, but
So if he would just gone on my website, looked at my price and thought it's too expensive, I'd have never got that wedding in a million years. But because I've had the chance to meet him, convey my value to him, and then having seen me at the wedding is like, wow, I get it now. But
this leans into the ownership thing that John's saying about, because once they've had you, that having experienced it, they wouldn't even quibble. They'd probably pay double because they've experienced it. It's kind of what you said about the ownership thing. Is we've had him now, and I wouldn't trade that money back. I'd probably pay more to keep him. Sort of
yeah,
thing.
but that's gone from potentially a lost booking to somebody who thinks they want to pay more.
Well, you wouldn't get John's booking because he'd go on your website and not see prices and think
Yeah, that's
Maybe
my
I'm just
philosophy
petty.
with it. I think it probably depends on what sort of industry you're in. Mine is a very personal thing, so it's going to be different for different businesses, I imagine.
it's a good contentious
So we're going to have
debate,
to
that one, isn't it?
agree to disagree on that one.
Anyway, thanks for coming on. We really wanted to hear your insights, but clearly Howard knows better. So,
Not when it comes to copy. Let me tell you that.
what I was wanting to ask was for anyone who, to go back to your earlier point, has these kind of is worried about what to start with, and they have these buzzwords of luxury and timeless and you know, what should someone be thinking about as their opening line, as opposed to these generic?
Oh, that's tricky.
And
I don't know.
would you rather use quotes at the start, very short bits of copy before leading into
Like a testimonial or some review or something?
would it be testimonials or just like a direct point? Because I think quite often if you go on a homepage of a website and there's a load of text there, most people, including me, just swipe by. I don't want to put the time in yet to read all that stuff. When I'm invested, you really do. But from a starting point, you said people's attention spans, yeah, they're so short. So that's why I'm wondering, is it better to be using quotes to build up that sort of confidence in, in the potential customer?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say first of all, yeah, testimonials, litter them throughout your copy. Some people have a testimonials page. I think I still do. Um, yeah, but you shouldn't have. They should just be everywhere because social proof is key. Because people will believe what someone else says about you much more than they'll believe what you say about yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the first bit of your website should be 100 words, 120, something like that. It shouldn't be a lot because as you say, people get bored. And it's another mistake I made on my first websites. I look back at them and some of my first paragraphs were like 250 words, and I was thinking, who's reading that? Yeah.
What sort of things then should they be thinking about?
Oh yeah, sorry. So I would so they say the who, what, and why. So basically, who you are, what you do, and why should they care. So you should always link what you do. There's a thing called the spotlight effect. So basically, you take the spotlight away from you and you shine it on the person reading it. So you should always relate whatever you're saying back to how it affects them and why they should care. And so I would say think about your one or two main things that you offer. It's really difficult without having it's
on a case by case basis, isn't it? Every business is different with a different message.
It's like I totally agree with what you're saying. It's like for me, rather than talking about my films, and which is a mistake I see quite a lot. This is my films are this, and I make films like this. It's turning it around and going, this is kind of what your film will be like, and what your experience is, and just simply as changing from mine to theirs.
Yeah, but also
that
like
makes a difference.
And yeah, it's 100%. But if you and I try to do it quite consciously and sort of see what adverts or what reels or whatever catch my attention and get me listening, or what adverts actually make me buy something. And they are invariably to do with what you're looking for. So if you're looking for a day where you get to relax and have fun, or if you're looking for a video that brings you back to the moment, whatever. So you should always, it's sort of like you think about what you offer and what your dream clients want, or rather think about what your dream clients are looking for, their pain points, the things they're really looking for when they're to hire, when they're hiring you, and then think about what you offer and then how those two tie in. So basically you start with what they want and then you tie it into what you offer. It's a really difficult thing to talk about in the abstract, but that's the best thing. A lot of marketers suggest you come up with, they call it an avatar. So you imagine your dream client, and some people even draw a picture of them. So you'd have their name, their age, what they do for a living, what they do on the weekend, and you have this really, really clear picture of this person in your mind and what they want when they go on their website. What is the thing that will get their attention? And then you talk directly to that person through the whole copy. That's who you're talking to. So it's me, it's me, it's you, it's I, it's you, and it's like a conversation with that really specific dream.
It simplifies the whole process then, doesn't it? Because you're not getting overwhelmed with trying to communicate to everybody. Have that avatar in your mind, and that's who you're talking to. It's brilliant. I wanted just to come back a little bit on the testimonials point there. So you definitely recommend not having a section that says testimonials and they open it and it's just loads and loads of testimonials.
I mean, you can, but I would also put them throughout the website as well. I mean, you can have a testimonials page, especially with someone like yourself, because the experience that you offer people is so important. And anyone can make a decent promo video, right? But it's how good the experience and the energy.
The social proofing with your service is really important, isn't it? Because
so I had a section on my website, I think it's probably still there, I've not checked for a while, where it was testimonial videos. So I got couples. I've not done it for a while. I probably need to do that again, to be honest, but I think they were really powerful.
Even better,
So I'd do it either after the wedding, I'd finish my performance, or I'd catch up with them a few weeks down the line and say, can I have a little video? They've even had some couples come here, actually.
There you go. Littered throughout, text ones, and then a page with the videos.
Page with the videos, yeah. Okay, that's...
Actually, but my wife, in all her infinite wisdom, has got one of those videos as well on her website of lots of different video testimonials.
Videos, yeah.
The only thing with it is
the only thing with it is actually, I don't think it matters too much, but the quality of the videos they're not great, because it's hard to control the environment. Certainly when you're on a wedding, you're sort of packing your gear away and you've just got the bride and groom for 5 minutes. Oh, can you do us a video? And you're on your phone. And
if only you knew a videographer.
If only I knew a good videographer. Yeah.
I'm too busy. Sorry.
Blogs is interesting.
Obviously, not just websites that you do, but blog. So what else do you do other than websites?
I write blogs. I write for Rock and Roll Bride as well. But it's mainly websites, blogs, and every other month I write for.
So I was going to ask about blog posts then. From an SEO point of view, do you have much of a hand in SEO, or do you just write purely like sort of creative?
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing with because blogs, you can be really specific to a venue. So I find blogs are quite good because couples will generally search for a venue before they search for a photographer or videographer, or basically it's the first thing you look for. So if you can catch people's attention in that venue searching stage, it's the perfect time to get people. And it's also really easy to focus the SEO of a blog and make it because it's a lot longer and it's a lot more sort of conversational. So you can put a lot of focus on that venue without saying, I'm a Surrey wedding photographer. I photograph weddings in Surrey. Come to see my weddings in Surrey, and here's my photography portfolio for Surrey weddings. So you can really focus the SEO, and you widen your net. And so Rebecca's website, for example, her actual copy on her website isn't SEO focused at all, because we're sort of aiming at a more luxury market. I don't think there's any keywords on there at all. So the idea is that when she'll get couples in from Instagram, or referrals, or wedding planners. And the website copy is purely designed to get people invested in her and get people to book. But we've written blogs that are focused on venues. So I think we're on the first page for sort of 3 or 4 really decent venues across the country that get her quite a lot of inquiries.
That's good. Is it a hidden blog, or is it one that's public on her website? Or
it's public, yeah.
As in it's
there's a link on her
navigatable to
website
it from you.
Oh, it's navigational from you can get there through the blog page. Yeah. There's
Yeah,
a blog
so
page on our
not
website.
the other way around. So if there's someone went on your homepage, would they be able to get to that
blog.
a load of
Yeah.
like a blog page with loads of blog posts on it?
Yeah. But I think for her website, it's linked with the portfolio page. But yeah.
Okay.
Because I remember hearing years ago about having like a public blog page on your website, because the blog posts then go in date order. Those, I mean, it's probably not as much essential anymore, but I didn't want the idea of my latest work isn't not my best. I didn't want, like, because it's the most recent, it goes to the top of the blog, so it's the first one people click on, but it's not necessarily the one that I want to promote the most. It just happens to be the most recent, so I took mine off. But
well, one thing I would say, yeah, it's an interesting thing you said about that, because I think a blog should be where your whole website really should be where you want to be rather than where you've been. So you should only post
what you're trying to attract,
what you want to attract. So I wrote a blog for Rebecca about a couples shoot in Marrakesh or somewhere, some far-flung country, and I said to her at the time, I was like, this is ridiculous, because no one's gonna pay you $1,000 to go and do a couple shoot, or $2,000 to do a couple shoot in Marrakesh, and you're not going to want to fly all the way over there and spend 3 days out of work for 200 quid. So, like, even if we rank on the top page of Google, what's the point of doing it? And she was like, oh no, do it, the pictures are nice. And then we ranked on the first page of Google. She got loads of inquiries, and she turned them all down because she didn't want to fly all the way over there for 200 quid. And I think it's really important, like, you should only write a blog if you want to do the wedding again. If you didn't like the couple, if you didn't like the venue, if the staff at the venue were horrible and didn't bring you your food, don't write a blog if you're not going to want to do the wedding again.
I think there's so many people just constantly churn out content. And for me, if I've done a wedding and I didn't like the venue owners or something like that, there's no way I'm even putting on social media,
Yeah,
so
you've got to be intentional with what you're posting about and what you're trying to attract.
For me, yeah, you want to be posting the weddings that you want to attract again, and those sort of couples.
But I like the mentality of, like, let's focus your website copy on the couples and the experience and selling yourself without having to worry about, oh, I need to slip keywords in there, because then it kind of compromises on you being authentic.
Yeah.
And then just focusing all your SEO efforts on the blog posts.
I mean, is
that what you recommend then?
Yeah, I mean, it is important to have. We could only do it without sounding arrogant on her behalf, but we could do it with Rebecca, because she is at that stage where she doesn't necessarily have to focus on it that much. But I think a lot of, I would always recommend putting keywords on your website. But then, having said that, with AI search as it is, because Google doesn't really understand, or Google search as it was doesn't really understand what your website's about. It doesn't understand the context of it. So it will look at the code of your H1 and H2 headings. It looks at how many keywords you got. It looks, you know what I mean? And it's clever, but it doesn't really understand what you're talking about. Whereas AI can understand context. So I think going forward in the future, not necessarily now, but as AI search becomes more and more prominent, I think having a really well-written website that keeps people interested and gets people staying on your website, clicking around, the user experience is going to be a lot more important than having sorry wedding photographer 10 times on your website.
Yeah, I get that. Well, I suppose it leads us on quite nicely to the next point, really, because I wanted to ask you about AI and how it affects the market, how it's affected your market.
I think some people listening to this would be like, well, I'll just get AI to write all my stuff for me.
Yeah. Well, as we know, weddings is such a personal thing. You can't just be putting out sort of generic AI type content. But I don't know. Is it good enough? And what's your experience?
Um, so I think, yeah,
You knew
AI
we were going to
is,
ask about this, didn't you?
yeah. No, so AI works basically by it reads what everyone else has written, and then it sort of puts it together and collect and then spits it back basically.
Yeah.
So all it's giving you is what everyone else has already got. And I think when you're the most important thing about writing your website is to make you stand out, because that's all people are looking for basically. They're just looking to decide who to choose. So your website needs to make them want to choose you. And if your copy is entirely taken from what everyone else has already written, it doesn't set you apart. It doesn't make you any different. And there's a thing I saw a contractor say that was you can have it fast, cheap, or good. You can have two, but you can't have all three. And AI is fast and cheap, but it's not good. Oh, sorry, yeah. And that's the thing. As soon as AI starts to become fast, cheap, and good, I'm out of a job and doing something else. But at the moment, it'll get it for you really quickly, and it'll do it for free. But it's not going to be any good.
Is there anywhere on your website where you could use it, or would you recommend it, or do you just think
Do
it's a
you,
no-no for now?
do
Well,
you use it at all?
no. I mean, I tried to when it first came out. I was really excited because I was like, "Oh my god, I'm going to be rich. I can do 100 blogs a day. This is great." And it just brings that it churns out like trash basically. I think I have seen some people. There's a photographer I'm doing a website for at the moment, and she's trained her AI to write her captions for her. So she's spent a lot of time telling it what words to use and what words not to use, and so she just basically gives it bullet points, and then it creates this actually very well written captions.
Captions, as in like Instagram and social.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use it for that at the minute. I've got a bit of a system on the go, which for certain things can be good.
I think
I
sometimes
wouldn't use it for copying my website though.
sometimes you can see straight through it, and you can tell. I think now people are getting savvier with it. People can
Yeah,
tell what is that reads as AI. So
yeah.
it's all about then the prompting, as you say,
It's
about
the training, isn't it, of it?
training it. Yeah, but
Yeah, I mean it's very, but also I mean, even Google can recognize the language patterns of it,
mhm.
and Google, although it doesn't say it officially, it does penalize
Okay.
AI written content. I think of
Yeah,
all
from an SEO
someone,
perspective, then
yeah. I mean, I can't remember who did it, but someone did a study of like 11,000 search results, and 80% of the top 10 were human written content. So Google doesn't officially penalize it, but basically people don't like reading AI trash because if you can't be bothered to write it, why should anyone bother reading it? And as you say, people can spot it in 5 words.
yeah. And I think
Um,
you're right. Like what when it's something as important as your website, which is a e-shop window,
Yeah.
why take the risk on
Yeah,
just churning out AI?
and just
Because
sounding like a robot.
but
Yeah,
it
I think
also
good on for social media though. I think
oh, I mean,
it's got its places on
it's
it for
got
certain
great
things.
implications, but it's I think there's going to be in the future this like blend of using it and taking its advantages, but then also the human element allows for creativity and innovation
mm,
because, as you said, AI can only spit out what's come before, so
yeah,
there's no innovation there until it learns to think for itself,
yeah, and then
which is
it's the
the point
Terminator
Which it
where
anyway.
already
Yeah.
does.
I Robot we all die.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I think the innovation and the creativity and the kind of human element, like what you do about actually, recreating someone's voice and what they're trying to, and especially in the wedding industry.
Mm.
Yeah, it's useful tool, but I think you're probably right about
Yeah,
the
for now. Yeah,
for now.
yeah,
Yeah.
What?
yeah.
So you got down here then. What's one copywriting change every wedding supplier could make today to improve their business?
Oh, hire me to write it.
Hire you to write it.
No, just kidding.
You can find
Um,
John
I'm just
Carpenter at www.
we'll get
what
onto
can?
that, and
We'll
obviously
link you in. Don't
link
worry.
No,
link
I'm just kidding.
links are going to be in the
Um,
description. But before we get on to you and what you can offer, is there anything that someone could do now, just as a quick, like implement one thing to just
so yeah, I'm reading a book called Wizard of Ads at the moment by Roy Williams, and he says at the end of every sentence, think which means or add which means into it, and then so follow on which means, because he said everyone's very good at saying, they list the features of things, and then they might go on to a benefit. So my car has a 2-liter engine, which means it goes really quickly.
Yeah.
But then that's still a feature in a way. Always end up with a which means
Something for you.
which means it's more fun, which means you get to where you're going faster, which means that it's more comfortable on the motorway, so you have a nicer journey. So that's a car example. I used to work in car rental, so I always just go back to a car example. But so basically go through your website, and if there's ever a so what, you need to finish that sentence. So if you're reading it, think of yourself as a customer and go as the client, and read it through. And if at the end of a sentence you think, okay, so what? So why should I care? Then you need to finish that thought.
Yeah, words are really important, certainly single words like that. There's one word that I've used for years, certainly when I'm in a sales position with a couple. I always use the word because, and one of my opening lines is when I'm starting our sort of chat is people book me because, and then I give them the because, and
I
they
love
just
that.
instantly agree. Of course, yeah, people book me because they don't want the wedding to be boring.
Yeah,
People
makes sense.
etc., 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 and just give them lots of reasons why people book me. But that single word because is really, really powerful.
Sorry, I'm probably getting sidetracked here, but I love that there's a book called Nudge, and they did there was a study in Harvard, where, sorry, it's quite a long story, but there was a study in Harvard where people were queuing up for the photocopier, and they went into the front of the queue and said, "Oh, can I cut in?" And like 90%, 95% of people said, "No, you can't get to the back of the queue." And then they tried it again where they said, "Oh, can I cut in because I'm late for a meeting or whatever?" And like 95% of people said yes. And then they tried it one last time. "Can I cut in because I need to make some copies?" And still around 93, 92% of people said yes. So the actual reason didn't matter. The only thing that made a difference was the word because. People hear there's a reason and they just say yes. But yeah, sorry.
No,
I
yeah,
got sidetracked there, but yeah, I
No,
think
it's
it's
a,
really,
it's
really
a,
right.
it's a good tip that for anybody certainly in a sales position.
Right, so let's get on to you and what you could like. So if anyone is thinking like, well, why do I need another copywriter? What is it? What's the first step? If someone acquired with you, how does it work?
if someone. So I would say that the first step, I'd say, and I think this is important to say before first of all, I think it's really cringy advertising myself. But yeah, I'd say the
Put you
first
on the
step.
spot there. Sorry.
That's all right. Because me and my wife were talking about it earlier. It's quite funny. I think everyone, it's definitely with photographers, and I imagine it's with videographers as well. But you all go through this, you all go through this like 2-year cycle where you invent yourself, and then in a couple of years you decide that you hate everything you've ever done, you hate your work, and you reinvent yourself, and then it happens again and again.
Feel personally attacked here.
How true is that?
But I think
True.
it's interesting that a lot of some people I've worked with, it hasn't happened a lot, to be fair, but it has happened occasionally where people sort of go through a rebrand just before they have this realization that they hate everything, that before they go through this like reinvention of themselves and their work. And it's like sort of it's like having a baby to fix a marriage. Basically, they sort of create this new website and this new brand, thinking it's going to fix everything, and then they have this reinvention, and then this new website isn't what they're after, and that the copy doesn't reflect them and stuff. So I would say, first of all, the best time to have to get a new website and to rebrand yourself is just after you've had this sort of biannual realization that you hate everything you've ever done, and then start to think about a rebrand and a new website.
Okay. All right. So I'll drop you a message tomorrow then, because I'm right in that crisis.
Is that why babies?
No, it's not why I've had babies. Although I like that analogy.
It's great.
So say I did inquire with you. What's the
Sorry, I got sidetracked.
oh,
Yeah, so the first First of all, I'm booked out till September at the moment, so inquire now if you're keen to get it done. Yeah, I mean, I'd send you a questionnaire that goes through how you work and your ideal client and the experience you offer. And then before we start working, we have a call that's like 90 minutes, maybe a couple of hours if we get sidetracked. And if you have a template, it's always really handy for me to have that first. Yeah, and then I'd write, and then there's a little bit of usually takes me about a month to get it what I think is perfect. And then I send it to you, and then you tell me it's not perfect, and we have a bit of back and forth, and I get it right, and then yeah, and then you put it onto your website.
Yeah. I mean, it goes hand in hand with your web developer, I imagine, as well.
Yeah, if you've got someone designing it, yeah.
Yeah, we talked the other
usually
through Rebecca, didn't we? The
Yes,
website girl. She was
Oh, I've
amazing.
forgotten. Yeah, off the top of my head.
Sophie. No,
She
Elizabeth
did.
did.
It was Elizabeth that we
Designs,
spoke to
yeah.
based on Rebecca's recommendation, I think.
Yeah, she's great as well, isn't she?
Yeah,
Yeah,
which I suppose helps because then you can collab with those people as well. Or
Yeah. I work with Sophie Amelia a lot from Sophie Sullivan from Sophie Amelia Designs, and we have a lot of back and forth. But yeah, it's quite handy to have if you've got a copywriter who has a good relationship with the designer, it works really well.
So say it was me, let's use me as an example. What are you looking for? My personal life, my personality, my products, my experience, like my sort of how I approach a wedding day. Like, what is it that you're trying to get across normally with
all of that? Yeah. So in terms of like, so is it when we have our call, I write everything down verbatim, like literally every word you say. I like typing away like mad. And then I go through and like pick out little phrases that you say. Someone I wrote for a website recently said, then we'll bimble off and go for it. And I'm like, what is bimble? And apparently it's a word for stroll that I've never heard of before. But little words like that are so you don't even realize you're saying them because they're just a part of how you speak. But it's a really good way of getting someone onto a page if you pick out these little phrases that only they say. And yeah, your personality, your humor, all that sort of thing, and of course the experience you offer, and then how that will tie into their experience on the day, and ultimately their video or their photos. But yeah, a lot of what we talk about is your clients, like the people you want to work with, and sort of tying that in with. Because you want to write to the people that you want to work with rather than the people you used to work with,
Yeah, and I suppose like that was it Bimble? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, Bimble off.
Bimble,
Yeah,
I've heard of Bimble off. Yeah,
but like you're then attracting people that would understand, and like for someone who then does inquire, that reads that word and goes, oh yeah, I know that word, and then that's that connection thing, isn't it?
It just creates the personality as well for the people can understand your personality.
Yeah, great.
Well, I've started weaving in. I mean, I think this is mainly just for my own amusement. But if someone really likes Friends, I'll weave in like a few little Friends references. Just not so it's not like I love Friends, but just so it's if someone else loves it, they'll recognize it's like an in joke, Or someone I recently wrote a website for loves old Hollywood movies, so I put in a few quotes from old Hollywood movies around it. So it's not like it is like an in joke for people who connect with it, and for people who don't, they'll just scan over it because
they won't even notice. Yeah, no, I think I can see how that would work from a customer point of view. If like you did say, if it's a Friends quote and you saw that and I got that reference, and all of a sudden you're connecting with that person.
People like people that are like them, don't they? Everybody sounds plots together. So if somebody can get a connection there, or he's like me, or they're like me, or she's like me, you feel that bit of a connection, and you can do that with words and obviously putting your personality across with the wording that you do. So it's really, really important.
It is important. I think it's as well as like.
So I can't have mine though, because it'd be like awesome, mega. It might be a bit.
Yeah, but that's fun though, isn't it? That's who you are.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's a common mistake I see on people's about page where it's not actually about them. You go to the about page and there's nothing about their home life or what they like, or it's all about, I started my business in this, which is, it's important to have the story, but there's nothing to connect to as a person. And in Rebecca's old website, I don't know if we still have it, but she had I really like Diet Coke, which seems like such a sort of silly thing to have. But you wouldn't believe how many inquiries she got where it was like, oh, I like Diet Coke too. Because people like having that point of connection, however trivial it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, friend,
Yeah.
Diet Coke friend.
People are so weird, aren't they?
They are, but people like connecting with people.
They do. People like people that like them.
Other Cokes are available.
Other Cokes are available.
No, you're right. You're right. When you said that, I was thinking of the typical about page of, yeah, so I started my business doing this, and this is where I went to university, and I've always had an interest in cameras, and I imagine that will be true for 90% of the websites that people go on and read.
I'm gonna go and look at mine now because I'm just.
I started. There was a I wrote a website recently for Danielle Beach, so she's a wedding photographer, and she started off photographing she was on a cruise ship, and so I think her original about page was like, I spent 5 years working on a cruise ship photographing families, blah blah blah, and so we changed it to that her story began. It all began on the open sea. As like the first little catchphrase, and it's like, okay, well, it began at uni, but the open sea thing's more fun. But it gets you reading, and it's called it's in copy, it's called an open loop, where you start a sentence that doesn't finish the thought, so you read it and you need to read the next sentence.
It's like complete. A start of a story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Once upon a time. You know what? I feel so bad.
Well, that's the sort of thing, going back to the AI. That's the sort of thing that AI wouldn't be able to do, isn't it?
My about page, right? I've just read a load of shite, right? Howard Wing is one of the best wedding singers, blah, blah, blah. He's been a musician and singer for years. Right at the very bottom, I've got Howard has been married to Samantha since 2006, has 2 sons, William and Lincoln. That's all I've got about me.
and interestingly, it's in third person as well. So who's writing this? Who's writing this?
I have no idea.
It must the anonymous they. Yeah.
And I got a nice picture, but yeah.
Mine's a bit. I think I've got a bit like that, where it's like Adam has achieved this, and it almost like someone's writing a biography of my life.
John, I need you. Yeah,
when you feel stupid all of a sudden, don't you?
I do now.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. And apologies to anyone listening who feels personally attacked.
What I was going to ask, just on that vein, is if I came to you with my website and was like, could you just like review it, critique it? Like, do you offer that or something along those lines?
Yeah, I used to be honest. It's one of these weird things because I'm sort of, I would say I'm a perfectionist, but I'm not. I guess I can't leave things alone. If I think I can make them better, I can't just leave it. So like I did it and I ended up just writing people's websites for them. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's something I need to start thinking about. But yeah, it's yeah.
I've got thoughts about the about page, which I think is really important. So say you have a hobby or something you like. Obviously, they should go in there. You might connect. What if you've got a hobby that's potentially, I don't know, controversial as a talking point?
I'm into S&M.
I collect Nazi
so I really like S&M.
I've been maybe leave it out.
Yeah, but for instance, like I like fishing, and I've been a fisherman all my life. And
fishing or fishnets?
Fish both. Love wearing.
Depends what day.
Wearing the fishnets. But for some people have so many different opinions on certain things nowadays. Some people would think that fishing is like a cruel sport, but it's part of me, and it's like, would you recommend steering away from certain things and keeping it personal but general? Do you know what I mean? On your about page,
yeah, sort of.
Yeah, it's interesting. If it's really controversial, I mean, they say nothing political and nothing religious. Yeah, if it's really controversial, because you do run the risk of alienating people, yeah, I mean, but if it's really important to you, I mean, how many people are you going to lose because you like fishing? But then other people.
It was just an example. It was just an example, you know.
I mean, yeah, if it's something like, you know, you go to rallies or whatever, I would stick away from things that are really, really polarizing. But things that are about your life, I would say include them. But because I've been thinking about this recently, I read a thing that said of every 10 customers, you've got 3 customers who are 100% going to book because you're their person. You've got 3 people who will never book regardless of what you say because you're just not right for them. And the key to success is appealing to the 4 in the middle. And so you don't want to be too polarizing, and you don't want to be. This is one mistake I made when I first started writing, is that I was very like, everyone has to be 100% authentic to themselves, and getting their personality across in the loudest way possible is really important. But then you end up losing the 4 in the middle. So you do want to be, you want to put yourself across, but in a way that you still appeal to the
Mm.
to those people as well. Again, we're going off on tangent, but it is a really important thing. When I started writing for Rock and Roll Bride, they sent me a thing that said all the words you have to use, and you're not allowed. You shouldn't say bridesmaid because it assumes that there's a bride, and you shouldn't say groomsman because it assumes there's a groom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's and I see a lot of websites that have my the bride and groom walking down the aisle. My favorite thing is the bridal prep and all this, and it isn't inclusive, and I think it's something you should be aware of, because if you were a gay couple reading that, you would immediately feel excluded, and I think it's something you need to be careful of with your copy.
So, I mean that's been great. We do have a couple of like closing questions that we always ask. So, unless you had anything else to
have a
ask,
question from the last
yes,
Stefan,
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
it?
So, were you happy to wrap up? There's nothing else.
Yeah, no, I think it's been really valuable what you
Thank you, by the way.
said.
And if anyone did want to inquire with your services and stuff, we're going to link everything on Instagram and in the podcast episode notes and stuff. But we always ask people for their most sort of hilarious, embarrassing story from a wedding, because we interview lots of wedding suppliers. And doesn't really apply here. But what I was going to ask as an equivalent was what's the weirdest, most outrageous thing that you've been asked to do, which actually is the question that the last guest left as well.
2 in 1 then.
We asked our last guest Stefan to ask a question for you, and it was the same question. So 2 in 1. What's the weirdest, most craziest kind of request?
I mean, I don't have any.
If you've got any sort of story like that.
Yeah, I mean, I just sit in my room and write, to be honest, so it's difficult. So I had the one client, and this wasn't their fault, but they literally just started. They got into the wedding photography like a month before or something, and they were like, "Oh, I need a new website." I was like, "Great!" So we had our call, and I went away and wrote their website, and after it took me 3 weeks, and they read it through and said, "You know what? Actually, I think I might be a little bit more sort of documentary, and I definitely don't think I'm going to be helpful and friendly to clients because I've read it through and it sounds like an awful lot of work." So I was like, "Okay, so I'll rewrite." So I rewrote the entire website. 3 weeks later, I sent it back to them, and they said, "Actually, reading it through, I think I'm a little bit more like curated and intentional now, and I kind of do want to help, but I don't want to help that much. So maybe," and so I had to rewrite again. So literally, this website took me 9 weeks. I wrote 3 iterations of the same website, the same person.
Wow. Do you charge extra for those sorts of things?
No, well, the annoying thing is I have
You
it in
didn't
my
in that
thing,
one.
so it's I have 2 revisions, which technically it was.
Yeah.
So
Big one.
yeah,
I
yeah,
love that. Someone's gone, "Oh, you've made me sound dead helpful and friendly," and I don't want to do that.
I'm not very helpful or friendly, so can you rewrite it, please?
Well, the thing, like, now I've learned to because when people are saying, "Oh, I really want to help, I really want to be like the bonus bridesmaid, and I really want to, whatever they need," and I have to say, if I put this in writing, you're going to read it and say, "Fuck, that sounds like a lot of work."
Yeah.
So how helpful do you actually want to be? And they're like, "Oh yeah, you're right, that does sound like a lot of work." So I've learned to preempt that, but also I've learned now to take people, if they've only been doing it for 6 months, I'd say, I honestly, I don't think I'm going to be able to help you that much, unless in our call,
Yeah, you've got to figure out who you are and stuff
Mm.
first, haven't you? I think it's an element of.
Yeah, but I think you should also put your hands in, put your website in the hands of a professional and let them guide you with things sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
because they're
you
they're
could make a lot of
professional for a
mistakes,
reason, aren't
couldn't
they?
you? You could make a lot of mistakes if you didn't know what you were talking about. But so your
Just
guidance is like invaluable there, but also they're not going to know themselves. There's going to be a lot of
it brings me back to maybe a student from years ago who we laid things out, do this, and then they come back, "Oh no, I actually don't want to do that." It's like, well, I thought you'd come to us for the help. You know, no, you're making your own mind.
Yeah, so in that instance, like they should just be taking your expertise at face value, and that's
I think yeah, and it's not their fault because I was fully aware of where they were at when I went into it. This was years ago, so I was, you know, I was inexperienced myself, but yeah, they didn't really know who they were.
That's what I mean. At the start, you go through like several like rebirths, don't you, for in quick succession until you start figuring out.
Mega
cool.
John.
Can we have a question to leave the next guest? So
I would say, because basically everyone I've worked with recently has decided that they want to go for the luxury market, and so I would say, what would be your best piece of advice for someone who wants to go up a price bracket?
Nice, like that.
Boom.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because everyone is like targeting the luxury, which is like what, I don't know, 2% of the market or something, but that's where the money is, so that's why everyone wants.
Yeah, because poor people are poor and rich people are still rich.
I just want to talk just brief. I know we're ended,
but
I just want a final thought on social media copy, because we know it's important for your website. Social media copy, as in your captions, the things you're saying below your photographs, and I know probably a lot, and I do it. Some of my posts is done sort of AI generated. Do you think that's as equally as important as your website, what you're putting below your posts?
I wouldn't say it's anywhere near as important as your website. I mean, it's not really my specialty, because I hate social media with a passion. Yeah, I would say your website is sort of permanently there, and it's something anyone who goes onto your site is going to read, and anyone making a decision on whether or not to book you is going to read your website. Whereas I think people will scroll up your grid, and after a day or two, no one's ever going to read that caption anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
John, thank you so much. John from the Carpenter Copy. You're on Instagram, I know you are, but you've just said that you hate it. So.
No, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. No, I love Instagram, it's great. I'm on Instagram twice a year, for a week.
Well, he still reads his DMs, people. Yeah, definitely. Certainly if this has been a valuable episode, or this is something that you're looking for, then go check out John's work, because he's fantastic.
Thank you very much.
And I see the stuff that you do put on Instagram every so often, and your stories, and every time I see something, I'm like, God, yeah, that is written so well.
Thank you.
I don't know what it is, but it always reads better than anything I could have, and you articulate things in such a good way.
Well, you've answered my question there, Adam, because it is important, then, isn't it? What you're putting in your captions, because you've picked up on it, thinking it's written so well. So yeah.
Anyway, thank you, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant, mate. Brilliant.
Cheers.
And cut.
Bye bye.
That's good.
So thanks so much for listening. We really hope that you found this episode insightful, inspirational, and if you did enjoy that, then please consider subscribing to us wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify. We're Think Wedding Business.
We're also on YouTube and Instagram, so if you want to watch us, you can go over to YouTube and find us at Think Wedding Business. And the same over on Instagram to keep up with all of our future episodes.
We'd really love you to subscribe and join us on this journey. And if you do like this content, please consider giving us a 5-star review. It just helps us get seen and helps spread the word.
So thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.